Well, welcome everybody to another edition of TCBC Bike University. We're glad to have you all. We've got, I think, about 25 folks that are signed up. And of course, this is being recorded. And so it'll be available on the YouTube site for TCBC. So you can watch it there or pass it on to others. I always like to thank our Council of Regents. That includes John Benda, Shelby Miller, Tim Rand, and Mike Beatles, who will be moderating today and introducing our speaker. Remember, we've had past programs so far on the environment, our club history, which is a real nice Bike U podcast to watch because it gives you a little history. I learned a lot. And then we had equity in cycling as our last one. All of those are on the Bike U web page, which is on the website. And that you can find all the recordings and all the information about the speakers. We are going to be taking a break since we're kind of into the bike season now and hopefully get some warm weather. So hopefully it just won't go too warm. I was talking to someone the other day. I just hope it doesn't go from 40 degrees to 90. So hopefully we'll have that nice 60, 70 degree weather for a while. But we'll be taking off that time, then we'll be coming back in the fall with some programming. And so we're working on programming now. If you have ideas for programs, please let us know. Just send an email to, it's on, Bike U at biketcbc.com. So make sure, we hear about other ideas that you have. And if you want to be on the Council of Regents, we certainly are welcome to have other people involved. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Mike Beatles, who will introduce our speaker and moderate today's program. Mike?
Very good. Yep, you bet. I think most everybody here knows me, but just in case you don't, I've been around in TCBC since '94 with a group ride leader for over 25 years. And Edward already talked about TCBC. We are a nonprofit corporation, a 401k, based partly on education. And so Bike U helps us meet that education goal that's in our charter. And we've had, wonderful speakers and we'll continue to have wonderful speakers. So I joined the Bike U Council of Regents and I figured I had to deliver something. So so I started thinking about what's a hot topic, and a hot topic right now is e-bikes, right? I mean, the board even developed a committee to develop a policy that's a current policy that's still up for discussion. So it's just the current state. So you might want to read that on the Bike Club website. There's an e-bike policy on the website, especially group riding. Basically, if you're riding in a group, you should probably ride the pace and style of the group. Basically, So, but if you're riding alone, who cares? But But if you're riding in a group with the club, you wanna be a good participant. So when we were shopping, my wife and I have been shopping for e-bikes, and so we met Stuart at powerbikes.com. It used to be Evolve right off of Highway 100 and was it 36, I think. Is that right? Okay. And it's now called powerbikes.com. And we met Stuart there and we chatted over an hour, and it answered a lot of our questions. So we're very thankful for that. And so in a quick introduction, electric bikes are poised to revolutionize transportation across the United States, and rapid adoption in Europe and Asia has reduced car dependency, along with corresponding fossil fuel consumption and environmental harm. We share a future where light electric vehicles increase our mobility, sustainability, and health, and electronic bikes are positioned to greatly impact how our community travels, exercises, and recharges. Our speaker today is Stuart Deets. He's a rental manager from Powerbikes. He also deals in sales, I believe. And he will now discuss the e-bikes and proceed forward. So thank you, Stuart, for coming today, and look forward to a good bike you.
All right. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here. So like Mike said, I work at powerbikes.com. I'm an avid biker and especially a bike commuter. And that really started for me in college. My dad bought me a bike for my 19th birthday just to get around. And I really loved that. So one of my focuses is for this presentation. One is I want to answer questions, and I've tried to anticipate a lot of that. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and then we'll try and get to them at the end. But then also, this is a little bit different than how I normally talk about electric bikes. I really focus on stories. So what an electric bike can do for you as opposed to some of the technical stuff, but I go more into that in my presentation today. But I'm going to start with a story. So this is my mom. She's 64 now. Whoops, I probably shouldn't have shared that. But she loves her e-bike. So she was in the market for an e-bike to keep up with my dad. Well, geez, she's now ridden over 3,000 miles in the past year. And I didn't think I would have to talk about getting new tires for her so soon, right? I wasn't ready for that conversation. And now she's talking about how she can reduce her car trips. So can she ride the 2 miles to Walmart? Can she bike to work? Can she bike to town events, to the fireworks in the town square? So for her, e-bikes really expanded the horizon of what was possible with a bicycle. So why choose an e-bike? So first, like I was talking about, they really broaden your horizons and they give you more choices and more options. So you can get where you need to go faster and easier because of the electric assist. You can choose to travel there without significant effort, although you definitely can choose to turn off the assistance and ride without the electrical help. You can definitely get there safer. And because the easier start from stop positions encourages full stops and can get you, and an e-bike can get you through the intersection quicker and more steadily. Hill climbs, long distances, things like that pose much less of a challenge with an e-bike. It's easier on your joints. It's easier to stay together with a partner who has a different ability level. You can ditch the car, and it's fun. I think that's really my focus, is it is fun, in addition to giving you choices and options. So what is an e-bike? An e-bike is a bicycle with a motor on it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about where the motors can be positioned. There's a more sophisticated legal definition, but there are two main genres of electric bike. So when you're if you're thinking about sitting down and doing a little bit of research, one of the first things to learn about is the location of the motor. Is it going to be in the hub, or is it going to be near the pedals, what's known as a mid-drive motor? So what you can see here is, let's see. What you can see here is a picture of a typical e-bike. So we can see that there are some major components to know about. Probably the most important one is the motor and battery, right? So on this bike, the motor is located here in the rear hub, and then the battery is located in the down tube. Then the display and control panel, we're going to talk about a little bit more in a second. But that's really where you control the level of assistance on your bike. The motor controller is really the brains of the operation. This is what tells the motor what to do and when to do it. And then every e-bike has a sensor in the pedals that detects when the pedals are moving. And there's really two different ways that it can do that. One is a cadence sensor. So it detects, are the pedals moving or are they not? Or what's known as a torque sensor. And that's where the bike detects how much torque and force you're putting down on the pedals. And if you're putting down more, it's gonna give you more help. So let's take a look at a typical e-bike display. So just like on a normal cycling computer, it's going to show you how fast you're going, right? And while a real fancy cycling computer might show your output in watts, this one is going to display here the motor's output in watts. So as the motor gives you more assistance, that bar is going to start to fill here. So yep, so we got a speedometer, and then this is your assistance level. So as you climb here, as you tell the bike to climb here, you're going to get more help, right? And you can see an estimate of the battery percentage, and then all of your normal cycling computer functions. This one does trip 1, trip 2, odometer, and even tracks the amount of time that you've been riding. So a little bit more about the motor, because this is something that's really important, especially I think to folks such as yourself. So understanding the general principles of power delivery on an e-bike. So the yellow is where electrical assist is happening. So we see here on this ring, this is the motor, right? And so this is going to spin, right? That's going to turn and move you forward. And then we have right here, you know, your normal gears. That's going to move the bike forward as well. And they are working in tandem, but they're not working together, right? Because you can turn that, you can turn the wheels and deliver power through the chain to the bike. And it's just going to spin, right? There's a fancy mechanism there that just allows it to go. And same thing if you're riding under motor power only, it's just going to propel you forward. So with a rear hub, there are a couple of key pros and cons. One is, I would say 95% of people who buy from us are looking for a bike that has a throttle. So where they're able to ride without having to pedal. A lot of times that's for, you know, maybe for medical reasons. You know, they want to be able to ride out and then not be worried about getting back home if they're not feeling well. It's also cheaper. And that's an important thing. You know, everyone's on a budget. And it also, because it's cheaper, it requires less specialized components and may require less maintenance in the long term. The real downside to a rear hub bike is it has less smooth power delivery, although this is changing somewhat as the bikes improve. In the worst cases, there can be a delay when you start turning the pedals, and then the power kicks in, and it's really a surgy feeling in the highest levels of assistance, which that doesn't feel natural, and it takes a little bit of time to get used to. So then with a mid-drive motor, its focus is really helping you. It's only going to engage when you're turning the pedals, and it's because it's delivering the power at the same place as you are when you're pedaling. It feels much more natural. It's a smoother power delivery. Additionally, it's much more efficient because it's taking advantage of the gears in the same way that you are. So here we have the motor, right? And then as we're turning the pedals and as the motor engages, it's delivering power here. And this is really you and the bike's motor delivering power at the same time. And then, you know, in some cases, you know, it can be twice as efficient as a rear hub motor. So the downsides to it, it's more expensive. This is a hard system to build. It requires finer industrial production, and there can be more maintenance in some cases, although that has really improved in recent years. And the other downside for some folks, more casual cyclists, is in order to get that level of efficiency and to avoid major maintenance costs, you do have to shift the bicycle, from 1 through 11 or whatever your bike has, because otherwise your bike's motor will end up trying to work too hard to get you going. So what are the different kinds of e-bike? So my focus here is really just trying to show the wonderful diversity of the kinds of e-bike that there are. As many kinds of bike as there are, they're the same amount of e-bikes. So we have really hybrid city commuter bikes, we have cruiser bikes, fat tire, folding, electric mountain bike, trike, cargo, speed pedelec, that's one that goes up to 28 miles per hour. So, city commuter, cruiser, fat tire, folding, electric mountain bike, tricycle, a cargo, great for kids. And with all of these, you have choices as to how fast you want to go. So what are e-bikes used for? They're used for recreation. They're starting to be used for sport. There are actual e-bike races out there starting to happen. They're also definitely used for transportation. So getting from point A to point B in an enjoyable but efficient way. So comparing e-bikes and mechanical bikes, e-bikes definitely cost a little bit more, right? So at the entry level, you're really taking an entry level mechanical bicycle and you're putting some electric components on it, and that adds cost. And then to really, get a high quality e-bike, you're looking at $2,500 to $5,000. And then at the high end, you can definitely, of course, you can spend however much money you want, but $15,000 is really the highest end electric bike on the market today. But you can see here, there's a lot that's very similar between electric bikes and mechanical bikes. Really, the only difference here in the state of Minnesota is you have to be 15 to ride an electric bike, and they aren't permitted on federal bike paths, which is mostly bike paths in national forests. And that's really the only place here in the state of Minnesota where you can't ride an e-bike. So with an e-bike, what do you get for more money? So range is usually the most important factor. So you're buying a bigger battery and a bigger motor. So that's able to take you farther, get you up steeper and more challenging hills. So, you might be taking a step from 20 to 40 miles to more like 30 to 60 or 40 to 70. Or if you wanted to get a dual battery bike, that could take you up to 140 miles on a single charge. You're looking at upgrading componentry, brakes, derailleur, belt drive. Do you want a belt drive? Do you want an internal gear hub? Do you want a higher quality motor? Bosch, Bros, and then at the lower end, Bafang. And then if you have a specialized use case, like a real serious cargo bike, a dual battery bike, or a trike, that's going to increase the cost as well. So the regulatory environment, we're very happy about it here in Minnesota. Minnesota in August of 2021 adopted the 3-tiered classification system, which you can see here. So class 1 is a pedal assist only bike up to 20 miles per hour with no throttle. Class 2 is pedal assist up to 20 miles per hour and a throttle up to 20 miles per hour. And then a class 3 is pedal assist up to 28 and throttle, and optionally throttle up to 20. And all 50 states have legal classifications for e-bikes. And functionally here in Minnesota, e-bikes are regulated like bicycles. And that's really what that August law update changed, is it removed some of the discretion from other regulatory bodies to regulate e-bikes differently than they would regulate mechanical bicycles. So I just drew this little picture here. So because there can be significant overlap between the 3 different classes, you can have class 1, you can have a bike that's class 1 and class 2. You can have a class 2 and 3. But most e-bikes are configurable to different classes depending on where the consumer is using them. So when we ship a bike, for instance, to California, the laws can be different there. In Massachusetts, the top speed is 25 miles per hour. And so it's possible for us as a dealer to configure all of those settings to whatever the laws are. And it's possible for you as the consumer, if you cross state boundaries, to change those speed settings. So let's talk about some misconceptions about e-bikes. First, men and women ride more often with e-bikes, averaging about 5 rides a week with e-bikes versus 3 with standard bikes. And participants burned on average a little bit fewer calories, right? I think that's to be expected. You may not work as hard with your e-bike. But the important thing here is that they went out 5 times a week as opposed to 3 times a week, right? And in a different study, they found that after buying an e-bike, people were healthier because they were going out more often, more frequently. And really that's what matters, right? You just want to try and stay active, and doing something more often for a little bit less intensity can be just as good as doing a high intensity workout less times. So then I think there's this conception that e-bikes are cheating. And so to me, that's always a really fun one. And so for me, it's about e-bikes being more fun, right? So I can go out on a 30-mile ride, but I don't worry so much about my knee, right? I had surgery on my knee a couple of years ago, and I don't really worry about that because I know that I can get back home if I need to. If I start to have pain, I just kind of dial up the assistance, and I know that I can get back home. So for myself, I like to do my bike rides in the morning before work. So most of the time what I do is, I go out and then I look at my watch and I say, crap, I need to get to work. And so then I turn on the assistance, zoom as fast as I can back to work, so that I can get changed and be ready for the workday, right? So for me, it's about being able to go a little bit further, a little bit farther, and know that I'll be able to get back to work. For other people, it means they can keep up with their wife, their husband, or friend on a bike ride more easily. I was talking with my girlfriend today about, we ride e-bikes together, and I was kind of like talking about this idea that e-bikes are cheating, and she said, Stuart, are audiobooks cheating, right? You can read a book, you can listen to it on audio. They're just different experiences, right? They're just different experiences. You can listen to an audiobook in the car. I don't usually try to read while I'm the person doing the driving. I think that's bad. It's reading and listening to an audiobook are different things. Biking and using an e-bike, pretty similar, also can be very different. So that's how I like to think about that. And then sometimes there's this idea that e-bikes are too fast and then they pose a danger to others on the road. Of course, e-bikes can go fast. The evidence, though, is that people don't go that much faster. They tend to compensate for the electric motor themselves by lessening the amount of work that they are doing, and they go at about the same speed. Of course, there always are exceptions, and we have to be mindful always about who else is on the trail with us. We have to be mindful of others around us, courteous and respectful. But it's definitely the case that someone can be driving and not be mindful, not be courteous. Definitely the case that someone can do the same thing on an e-bike. You can definitely do the same thing on a scooter, and on a conventional bike as well. So I think our focus is always just be courteous, be aware of your surroundings, right? Be aware and be kind to others around you. So just returning to why choose an e-bike? Remember that it broadens your horizons and gives you more choices and options, right? That's really what an e-bike is about. Lets you have more fun, lets you go more places, lets you do more stuff. Whether that's like keeping up with your husband, whether that's keeping up with your friends, that's going to the grocery store, whatever it takes to get you out cycling, that's what an e-bike can do for you. So a couple trends in e-bikes. One is batteries are just getting better and better. So it used to be with old technology, you had 20 pounds of batteries for 20 miles of range. And now we're at like 8 pounds for about 60 miles of range. And what we're really seeing happen is there's a lot of innovation happening in the battery sector. And that technology is moving first to electric cars and other sorts of industrial applications, but is moving to e-bikes, right? It's trickling down. That technology is really improving. The cost of an e-bike is continuing to decline because we're making batteries faster, cheaper, and better. We're making motors more efficient. New e-bikes are definitely priced more competitively than getting a kit to turn or convert your mechanical bike into an e-bike. Additionally, e-bikes are not really being hindered by the regulatory environment anymore that confused consumers so much. There's definitely still confusion, but it's really improving. Sustainability commitments from key manufacturers are allowing people to really make the case that cycling is really sustainable and green. E-bike availability is really increasing, including stores like us that specialize in electric bikes. You can go on Amazon and buy an e-bike for about $800. My heart would be broken because I think that you should work with a dealer. My girlfriend's father really wants to buy a bike on Amazon. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stop him. But these things are available and people are using them. If anyone here watches basketball, Klay Thompson of the Golden State Warriors rode into the arena last night on an e-bike. That was huge for me. I love watching basketball. So these things are just becoming more popular. More people know about them and more people are selling them. And then, of course, important is the warranty, mechanical, our knowledge, and the number of people who know about how to fix these things is growing pretty much across all channels. So when it comes to sustainability, the development of this e-bike market makes commuting by bicycle increasingly accessible for families and individuals. Can't tell you how many of my friends love the nice rides, the e-bikes there, and they love using them to get around. And so they're talking to me about how much they love those e-bikes and what can they do, what kind of bike would I recommend for them so that they can get around on an e-bike of their own, right? And that's really important because about 29% of our greenhouse gas emissions are transportation, they're cars. And 60% of our car trips are less than 6 miles, right? And about 40%, right, of our car trips are less than 3 miles. On my e-bike, I can do 3 miles in about 12 to 15 minutes, right? That is really, really awesome. And for me to commute to work, it's about 2 miles. It takes me about 8 minutes to drive there. It takes me about 9 minutes to e-bike there at full speed. I love that, right? That is what makes biking competitive with a car, right? It doesn't take me that much longer, right? It's more fun, right? It's more fun because I don't arrive to work sweaty and tired. And so, you know, that for me was a huge factor in reducing the number of cars that my household had from 2 to 1. And then I lived for about October to March with 1 car in our household, right? So for me, when I'm talking with folks about sustainability, about using an e-bike to get around, I don't say, oh, no cars ever, right? I don't think that's feasible. I don't think that's good. But can you try to move from 3 cars to 2? Or if you have a smaller family, can you move from 2 to 1, right? From 2 to 1. That's really the key. And that's where some of like those cargo bikes are huge, right? I was working with someone the other day. She lived about 2 miles away from our store. She just wanted to ride into town with her kids, pick up some groceries and ride back, you know, take them to soccer practice and stuff. We were all for that, right? You know, they probably weren't going to sell their car, but they were going to replace some of their trips, right? That's huge. So a little bit of advice about how to choose your own e-bike. So my first recommendation, go to your local bike shop. Many of you folks probably already have a good relationship with them. Go to them and ask them about what kind of e-bikes they have in stock, if there are any of them that you can try, right? Many people go online, right? Because they're very available online, right? I definitely recommend you can get a competitively priced one from your local bike shop. They're going to know a ton about them. And they're also going to have a service technician who should know a lot about them and how to fix them. I'm an amateur wrencher myself, right? I try and fix stuff that goes wrong on my bike. But sometimes there's computer stuff that you need an expert to help you with. And so that's why I recommend developing that relationship with your local bike shop. And just like with an ordinary bike, think about what you're going to use it for. Do you want to use it to haul kids? Do you want to use it to haul sandbags around? If you look around online, you'll see a lot of cool people moving construction materials around on e-bikes, right? You're seeing people move bags of dirt that they pick up at the hardware store for their garden, right? You know, 100 pounds of stuff they're carrying on their e-bike. Do you want to speed around town for your commute? You just want to get there as fast as you can? Do you want to see more stuff on your rides? Do you want to go on a bicycle tour across the United States? We had one great customer. These are our favorite customers, right? They're the people who are riding from Maine to Minnesota, right? And then we ended up shipping him a part to a PO box in New York so he could fix his bike along the way, right? But he had a ton of fun, right? So whatever you want to do, your local bike shop is going to be able to help you do it. And when I'm working with someone, I just try and say, hey, what kind of riding do you like to do? What kind of riding are you looking to do, right? And then, you know, you understand, okay, this is what this person is looking, this is what this person is looking for, and here's how I can help them. And that's really what your local bike shop should do. So what can you do, right? I'm big on action. So what can you do? One, you can try an e-bike. So you can use discount code on our website, BikeU. That's the code that you can use for $25 off your rental of an e-bike through May 28th. And hopefully we do get a little bit of sun here, so it'll be nice. We have 2 great locations that you can ride right out of. ride around the lakes. There's another scenic trail near our other place. So it's just really fun. I recommend stopping in for a test ride, either us or any other place locally. The other thing that you can do is you can ask your legislator for safe recycling infrastructure, especially separated bike paths. I don't know if any of you folks have been following all the stuff on Hennepin and in Uptown, but really we have some opportunities to make transformational change in how we get around with some separated bike paths that are much safer. So definitely contact people. You can also ask your federal legislator to support the 3-class system nationwide. Right now, it's really a patchwork, state by state movement with 36 states. But we want it to be nationwide. We want a nationwide standard. Okay. And you can scan those things and their links, right, to take you to a place to contact your legislature or our website. So questions, I'd love some questions. You can email me or you can call our shop. I'm ready for questions.
All right, we have a few here in the chat. The first one from Robert is, it's in 3 paragraphs, it looks like. Should I read them, Edward, or just, what do you think?
I can read it.
Oh, okay.
So Robert is saying that the rear hub is not necessarily less smooth, can feel most natural with a better controller. A rear hub not necessarily cheaper. Yeah, so Bob, I think we spoke on the phone earlier today. Bob may have called to talk about e-bikes because he saw the Bike U was happening. But it's definitely, what you say is definitely true about what Bob is saying here about how the rear hub is not necessarily less smooth, but it really comes down to the computer. Absolutely true. Same thing with the mid drive and the everything that Bob's saying is true. I was doing a generalization. For the most part, rear hubs feel less smooth. Of course, at the higher end, everything feels great.
Yes.
Okay. So then how long do batteries on e-bikes last? What is the process for recycling the batteries and how does the repurchase work? So the real technical thing about batteries is they last a certain number of charge cycles. An e-bike battery is going to last about 1,000 charge cycles. So that's about 10 years in Minnesota. So let's say you go out on a good ride, you use 50% of your battery, and then you charge it back up to 100. That's half of a charge cycle because you depleted it halfway and then charged it back up. So you could do that 999 and a half times before your bike's battery would be considered degraded. So then for recycling that battery, you should bring it back to your dealer. They should be participating in a battery recycling program, which at my place we do. We'll definitely take your battery because we can go sell them to another recycler and get $5 a pound or so. It's less than that. It's not very much money, but when you collect 500 pounds of something, it becomes valuable. So then that process for recycling is they open up the battery and then there's individual cells inside of that that they're able to recover and potentially reuse for other purposes. Very interesting process and something to monitor as the industry becomes more mature. So then Dick asks, what type of warranties are there on e-bike motors and batteries? I'd say standard is 1 year to 2 years. The very best are 2 years right now. Then beyond that, some companies will offer proration. So they offer you that battery, a replacement battery at reduced cost if you're outside of the warranty period. And one benefit of going through a dealer is they're going to know all that stuff and they're going to deal with all of it for you. So if your bike's battery goes bad, you just take that to them, say, hey, this isn't working. They're going to double check it, and then they're going to take that up with whoever made it and get you taken care of. So then the pros and cons of a removable battery. I definitely think that the pro of a removable battery is that it is removable, right? You can take it off. You can take it in the house with you, right? It's way more convenient for me that my girlfriend's e-bike has a removable battery because I can charge it up in the garage here in our house instead of down in our garage, right? We live in an apartment. There's no outlets near where we have to store the bikes, right? The other pro of a removable battery is anti-theft, right? Not very much fun to ride an e-bike without the battery, right? It's heavier, it's pretty much useless. You have to go about sourcing a battery, and those tend to be expensive, $500 and $900, depending on the quality and size. The con of a removable battery could be, someone could steal the battery, I guess. That could be a con. E-bikes, I'm not really sure exactly where they started. They've been around for a long time, though. The first Harley Davidson was a bicycle that they put a motor on, like a gas motor. So the idea has been around for quite a long time. So Jane asked, do batteries need to be stored in a basement versus an unheated garage? How I think about batteries is I treat them like I treat a puppy, right? If I'm cold, they're cold, right? Definitely bring them inside the house if it drops below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. They're okay to use when it's colder, and I certainly do. I had a wonderful ride in January out on a frozen Cedar Lake when it was about 5 degrees. Very fun, but the performance can be affected, and I don't leave it outside in the cold. And then, so if class 3 is not allowed on federal bike paths, how would that be handled? Well, I think it's very similar to cars on the highway. If the speed limit says 45 and you're going 70, I think that's the problem. So drive the speed limit always, right? Be courteous and respectful, follow the rules of the road. So then Mary asks, how many miles can you get from one charge? So that can really vary. So 20 to 40 is really a good entry level. You can go smaller based on the cost. And then you can definitely go bigger, right? You can definitely go bigger, 40 to 70. But it all really comes down to the individual bike. Then Lisa asks, how light can you get them? 36 pounds is a good place. Would be a really light e-bike. There definitely are some like carbon fiber things out there. Those are more expensive, and I think they're Specialized has a couple, and we don't carry Specialized, so I don't know too much about them. But there are carbon ones out there that get awful light. So then the speed limit for bike paths, usually it's whatever's posted. I think around Bede-Makaska it's 10, although not even mechanical cyclists seem to follow that. So yeah, and then a new battery is going to cost anywhere, from $500 to $900. I think a Bosch battery these days is about $900 for the biggest size. Yeah, any questions? I think I pretty much got through all the questions in the chat.
There was maybe one here. It said, I did not think class 3 bikes have a throttle. Very surprised that 90% of customers want a throttle.
Yeah. So I think that really, and it's kind of hard. It took me about 3 weeks to wrap my brain around this, right? So you can have a pedal assist bike that goes up to 28 or or no, and it might not, or it might have a throttle, right? It could, but it doesn't have to.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then Bob asked, for my e-bike, I keep track of all charging with a spreadsheet so I can estimate easily when I would get to 800 or so charges. This also helps me gauge better if the range I get from full charges.
Well, that's really great,
Oh,
Bob.
That's good.
That's really great. I have to say, I'm not that good with my e-bikes about tracking that stuff. You definitely don't have to do that, but it's fun if you do, right? It's fun if you do.
Then another comment from Bob, a throttle is very useful for getting across intersections. Got my e-bike from Powerbikes and I love it.
Great to hear, Bob. We love you too.
Okay. Not seeing anything new in the chat. Edward, where do you want to go now? Or did you have anything else you wanted to say, Stuart? Or
No, I'm good. I think I'm good. Thank you all very much for having me. I really
thanks for coming. It was a very good presentation.
thank you.
Yeah, Mike, I just didn't know if, does anybody else have any questions that they want to ask online rather than chat? Now's the time if you do. Okay, well, hearing none, want to thank Mike for arranging this program, and Stuart, thank you so much for a very informative presentation. Really appreciate that. Learned some new things, as I always do on these. Just a reminder, I think, Mike, I think just one correction, you said something about a 401k. I think you meant a 501c3. Yeah, okay, you got that. And we'll have, I'll be working on this recording. I'll have it up in the next day or two. And I'll put a thing out on the, a notice out on the forum that it's ready, and it'll be on the Bike U page. And it'll just be embedded in there so you can view the recording for YouTube. So thanks again for everybody attending. Really appreciate you taking the time.